a brief introduction of the WinS network. I'm also joined by my colleague Fred Madrid and Kimi Wee, who have been strongly supporting the preparation of this event and the entire webinar series. So for the next hour, we'll be monitoring chat and also posting some documents on the chat. So we encourage you to actively engage through the chat box. Please note that this session is going to be recorded and made available via the WinS Network webinar. By staying on the call, we understand that you provide your consent for the recording and sharing. Next slide, please. Now, moving back to the introduction of the WASH in Schools Network, or WinS Network. The WinS Network is a global interagency network that aims to harmonize efforts and promote alignment among various players in the WinS partner landscape to support Ministries of Education towards the improvement of WinS services in a more unified and mainstream manner. Just to share a brief history, the WinS Network was formed back in 2010 in response to the important need to provide support to WASH services in schools even before its inclusion in the Sustainable Development Goals. After launching the landmark call to action for WASH in schools in 2011, the network now continues to support the global effort to realize the SDG targets for WINS. And since its establishment, the network now consists of these organizations, which you see on the screen, as core group members, and over 150 members from UN agencies, government partners, development partners, NGOs, researchers, and the private sector. Next slide, please. Right, so the WINS network is focused on the following working streams, namely advocacy, policy support and system strengthening, WINS monitoring and reporting, research and evidence building, gender inclusion and equity, guidance on WINS programming, knowledge management, capacity development, learning and exchange. Next slide, please. Right, so in support of knowledge sharing around the said working streams, which I mentioned in the previous slide, the WINS Network has a website, which has been set up to serve as a knowledge hub where you can get updates and on latest and past events on WINS, and global guidance documents, publications, and also as an immediate response to the COVID-19 pandemic, there was also a knowledge map on WINS and COVID-19. And by the way, reports and or presentations from previous Washington Schools International Learning Exchanges are uploaded on the resources page of the WINS Network website. So that's www.winsnetwork.org. Next slide, please. Right, and in addition to the website and in support of continuous learning exchange, the network, WINS Network, also co-organized a series of webinars last year together with core group members on various topics concerning WINS. And in case you are interested on any of these topics, which we've covered in the last webinar, all of these are available on the WINS Network website. Recorded presentation materials may be readily accessed. Next slide, please. And this year, in the first part, we are hosting a series of webinar sessions to help pave the way for further discussion around and during the WinS ILE in Africa. The first of the 3 webinar sessions is the one we're having today. And do take note and mark your calendars for the next 2 sessions on the 2nd of March and 20th of April on the global impact study for the 3-star approach and the outcomes of the first ever ILE Africa, respectively. These webinars were organized for WinS ILE Africa delegates, but also anyone, interested individuals working outside the African region are most welcome to participate in the discussion. Next slide, please. All right, so speaking of membership, all of the invitations to the webinars are sent out to WinS Network members, and we would like to take this opportunity to invite you to continue to engage with the WinS Network, either as a member or a partner organization, if any of the initiatives of the WinS Network are of interest to you or is aligned with the work that you are doing. As a member, you will be part of our mailing list and receive regular updates on the WinS Network activities. Organizations can also become partners by sharing the WinS Network's vision and by expressing openness to engage in the network's activities. You may scan the QR code on the screen, which will lead you to the membership registration form. I would also like to highlight that membership is absolutely free of charge. And with this, I will then close my presentation and move into the topic of our webinar today. Next slide, please. All right, so I'm just quickly checking the chat. For those who have just joined, the instructions on how to activate the translation feature is posted by my colleague Kimmy. Kindly check if you have that functionality available and please follow the instructions. Now, moving into our webinar proper, the session for today aims to provide an overview of the Enabling Environment Matrix, or the EE Matrix, and provide examples of how this tool has been effectively used by Ministries of Education, government agencies responsible for WASH, and development partners to engage and discuss their WIN status in preparation for WIN's international learning exchanges. Without further delay, please allow me to introduce our first speaker who will walk us through this tool. So Dr. Bella Mons is a dentist by training, and she specialized in school health promotion, health, and WASH in schools, or WINS policy and research. Since 2011, she works on the GIZ Fit for School program to support Ministries of Education to develop, implement, and scale up effective school health and WASH in schools programs in Southeast Asia. Bella holds a PhD degree in global oral health from Radboud University in the Netherlands. Bella, over to you. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you loud and clear.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thanks a lot for the introduction, and happy to see many people in the room here. And what we are planning to do now is to introduce the Enabling Environment Matrix. I would be happy if we can have the slide of the Enabling Environment Matrix as well as exactly. And please also place this in the chat box so that people can open it also on their own so they can better read it. Is that possible? So that, I mean, that everybody can really place it. Can somebody place it in the chat box so that it can be downloaded? So that people can download the Enabling Environment Matrix. I don't see it in the chat box so far. Okay.
Yes, Bella, we'll try to figure out how to place that in the chat box. In the meantime, I think, yeah, we can share
proceed.
a bigger version.
Okay, we
Yes.
will, otherwise we'll send this. So what you can see is this simple Excel sheet, which has been developed in order to support country teams to take stock of the situation of WASH in schools where they are. And it has been sort of a process which in country teams which work on a national level on WASH in schools to assess their status and look for certain points, for certain so-called interrelated WINS government functions. And these WINS government functions you can see all on the left. You can see there the first one, as you can see this, are government functions which are very much aligned with the water for all building blocks. Yeah, you might have heard about this. This has been used by many countries, and the enabling environment matrix is supposed to be used in order to look where you are with your country planning and where your national efforts on WASH in schools are. It's supposed to be done on a regular basis with those who are part of a national technical working group or a group of the government representation plus involving NGOs, private sector, to look of the status of WASH in schools. If you see it, you have the different building blocks or the different functions, government WASH in schools functions, which are, the first one is policy and planning. The second one is budget and expenditure. The third one is monitoring and evaluation. And the fourth one is on implementation arrangements. And the fifth one is on capacity development. And if you look at the next block, you can see that there are certain questions to answer and to go through these questions all together and look how you are going to answer this. You can see that you have different questions, and then on the horizontal barrier, you can see you have the most significant barriers or so-called bottlenecks. You have proposed actions which you have done the year before or what you have planned to do. You look into the indicators of success. How would you measure that? And you look of focal institutions who are supposed to work on this or who will take on this responsibility. And then there is the plan to put for each of these questions a color. So red, like an Ampel system. Red for there is no progress, yellow for progress, but you still have constraints. Green for you make good progress, you're really on track with this. Or blue if you think it's all completed. Yeah. So the point here is and if you fill this in as like an exercise, like a workshop within a national technical working group on WASH in schools, you will easily find out where your strengths are and where your weaknesses are. This system is not supposed to really at the end be right or wrong. It's far more to support and initiate a process among all the partners, and also to see who's working on which area, who could do what, and how do you assess the current situation, and also see in which area do you have already achieved something, which area you perhaps still have quite a lot to do. And this will totally help you as a team, as a national team, not to lose important aspects out of perspective. And also put the same questions a year later, or perhaps you even do this process twice a year. The idea with this is to have a guided process to look at WASH in schools programming on a national level. I think I will stop here so that there's possibility of participants to place in questions. Because I did this in English, this might be difficult for French-speaking people. Yeah, perhaps I will see what are because there are quite a lot of questions in the chat box. Perhaps you help me,
Bella?
to guide through.
Yes, Bella, there's one. Yes, Belinda.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah. So when you don't show the screen, we can use we can see your translation. So perhaps to close the screen again and maybe just go through some of the key points so we can see the translation. I think this might help. Just some key points again. And there is a question when the matrix is due for the ILE. There's just one question I see.
Yeah. Country teams will receive this matrix, and they should prepare and bring a filled-in matrix, send it in. The point is more to set up the discussion among country teams and have a common, let's say, lens together to look over this. There will be an invitation to fill this in coming in, I think, either tomorrow or Monday for country teams. And then they will, within the next week, they should meet and send it in prior to the ILE. Most probably that this comes in the week before. Yeah, but it's also not super strict. It's more that country teams, sometimes there are these people, this will be the first ILE for Africa, so it might also be that it's more in the process for country teams to prepare a bit and to look at the different aspects to fill this in. So it's nice if it can be prepared in the week before and sent in, but it's also not a total must. There might also be people joining the ILE which are not working on national level. They will not be totally part of this process. And within the ILE, we will also have during that week time that country teams will sit together and look at this and also have perhaps people involved in their country, which are normally are not at that stage working on the national level, but they have a lot to contribute what happens on, let's say, perhaps in the province or even on school level. They might have, well, things to contribute. So it's more something to guide the process on washing schools within a country and a country team. And at the end, it's also not the colors that it's really totally the truth. It's a snapshot of that moment within a country team. Yeah. And it's also a question how you judge about the using the colors. Also, there is not a right or wrong. It's something to work and start to discuss within a team and say, for our conditions, this is already, we feel we already pretty much moving forward. So we give it, let's say, a yellow or green. And for others, this would be still not where they're supposed to be. They give it another color. It's not, you are not right or wrong with the colors. It's far more with to see where you as a group, as a country group, see yourself. Yeah. Please bring up questions if you have.
Yeah, so Bella, I am fortunate we didn't go through the first slide, so there's some basic questions on, for example, what is ILE, especially with the translation. So maybe you can explain what ILE is. What is EE matrix? What is the matrix about? We just jumped right into the matrix, and a lot of exchanges are, this is the first time for some of our government counterparts to see this. So we just need to maybe just take a step back. Thank you very much.
Yes, the EE matrix, as you see here in the slide, is a tool to help country teams to prepare for the international learning exchange. But of course, it can also be used in each country which is not joining the learning exchange. The learning exchange is an event which brought together in Asia happening 10 years ago, which brought together country teams from many different Asian countries, and they met once a year to see where their progress in Wash in Schools programming is. They learned from each other. It is an exchange platform happening in Asia once a year, bringing together actors, government officials, but also NGOs and also even private sector in Indonesia, private sector, to look where is WASH in schools and how can they learn from each other. So, and this year, in 3 weeks from now, there will be the first African ILE happening in Côte d'Ivoire, in Grand Bassam, and bring together teams from Africa. The idea is for country teams to prepare a bit, use this enabling environment matrix to examine their own situation. So it simplifies really as it's written here, the complex multi-sectoral nature of aspects with WASH in schools, and try to give a clear direction and helps and motivates government and all the development partners to move forward and see their own situation using a traffic light assessment in a very subjective way. As I said, there is no right answer. It's more to guide a discussion.
That was great, Bella. Thank you very much. And some other questions were around, I think it was around how country teams should get together in preparation. I think there was one from Cameroon. How should country teams arrange to get together? And then a nice thing from Ina saying that she does like how countries can map out and use the process. So can you speak a little bit to the preparations, what countries should be doing in preparing?
Yeah, if countries have normally, or it's good if countries set up sort of a process to meet with the relevant actors on a regular basis, which means it will be those within the government, which is usually the Ministry of Education, because WASH in schools is happening in schools, but very often there's also quite an involvement of Ministry of Health, Ministry of Water. So those who are active in the area of WASH in schools with their relevant partners. Usually in each country, UNICEF is very active in the area of WASH in schools, and then depending on country context, there are other organizations active. And it's important that specifically also the partners supporting WASH in schools are aligned with what the government wants, and that the government, on the other hand, feels the support of the partners and not so much on individual initiatives happening in a few schools. It's so important that even if it's a few things happening, actions happening in a few schools, that they're aligned to what is happening on the national level. Is that answering to the question? So it's important that country teams will find a way to get together. Very often they have established meeting mechanisms. As I said, it's called technical working group, a TWG, a technical working group, or they call it a school health section with meeting with the partners on a regular basis. They have usually some structures within the ministry and the respective partners to meet. And the idea here is really to have a guided meeting structure to look into these different interrelated WASH in schools government functions. And that would be good to see, to get together. And specifically in preparation of such an event, it's good to get together. But if this is not happening now, then it might happen during this ILE, International Learning Exchange, or even afterwards. And the idea is also to use this enabling environment matrix and look at the next time again and see how did we move, to take the same questions to see if progress has been achieved. I don't want to go over each and every aspect. As I said, the questions, I don't need to read them. I really encourage you to download this document, go over these questions and discuss them among your team. And if you feel it's not relevant, then you don't use it. It's not very strict. It is more a help to guide, to look into the different governance functions and to see what kind of support is needed, where are the gaps, and perhaps agree on the most important or most relevant area for your country. And also see who of the different organizations, be it government organization, will go in the lead, who feels responsible. You can see there are different aspects written in the horizontal columns where you can also go down, and it's just a tool to guide your analysis, to guide that you analyze the status of your WASH in school situation and look where do you want to focus and what is the role of different other agencies.
There's a
This
question, Bella,
tool was
around
developed,
who.
yeah, sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
The tool
Yeah,
has
who
been
they can
developed in
approach. Okay, go
2016
ahead.
and has been used now for 6 years consequently. So it's something that is, and it has been a bit changed last year to address also a bit more in aspects of inclusiveness, but it's basically, it has not much changed in the last 6 years. Sorry.
Yes, no, Bella. There's a question around who they can approach in case there are questions for they have clarifications on the indicators, or is this depending on the joint understanding of the group working on the EE matrix?
Yes, I think so. I think if there are questions, I think it's always good to discuss it within the TWG. I think many of the UNICEF colleagues have worked quite a lot with this enabling environment matrix, but feel also free or put an email also to the WinS network. There might be some support coming, but let's also see it. It's not always see it like this. This is not, there's no right and wrong. This is just a tool to encourage the discussion. And it's also depending on how your TWG is composed, how you see this, and how you are going to discuss it. It's a tool to encourage discussion. And I think during the ILE in Grand Bassam, we will discuss that in more detail per country. But always see it like this: there is no right or wrong. Yeah, this is something to help for you to plan, to analyze your situation, to see where gaps are and plan accordingly.
There are other questions in the chat which Belinda's already addressed, and there's just one here. If individuals doing WASH projects in their communities can use the tool, so this is like just open to everyone who's getting started on their or already on their WinS programming.
Yeah, I've replied to that. I just want to maybe
All right, okay.
yeah, I've replied to that. I think we can probably move on to see a real life example of how it's being used in the Philippines. Again, this is as Bella said, this is a tool that you would do under like a coordination or technical working group. It's not done as for projects, it's rather done for the whole country, the whole system. So many of you who are involved in system strengthening, that kind of aspect, it's the whole system. So you're dealing with all partners and not by project, just to clarify. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Thanks, Belinda. And yeah, if there are other questions, just keep posting in the chat, and our presenters will respond by typing in their feedback. So now let's move back into the presentation. We still have two to go. So to inspire you to look into this tool, explore if it's something that can support you with WinS programming, we have a country example from the Philippines on how the enabling environment matrix was used to support WinS planning. So we have a presenter, Dr. Maria Corazon Dumlao. She's a medical doctor by profession and has been actively involved in the public health sector and education for already 27 years. She currently heads the Philippines school health programs of the Department of Education as its Chief Health Program Officer of the School Health Division under the Bureau of Learner Support Services. Without further delay, I turn over to you, Dr. Lau. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marge. Good day, Dr. Bella and our colleagues who are here with us. I am Dr. Maria Corazon Dumlao, the Chief of the School Health Division of the Bureau of Learner Support Services, and I'm happy to be here to present to you the Philippine experience on the WASH in Schools Enabling Environment. The WASH in Schools program is one of the pillars of the OK sa DepEd or Operational Plan for Health of the Department of Education. And it's the flagship program for the implementation of health in the Department of Education Philippines. We recognize that access to safe drinking water, basic sanitation, and hygiene, or WASH in schools is the right of every child. The provision of adequate WinS is a defined target within the Sustainable Development Goals, particularly SDG 6 and 4, which constitutes the most basic prerequisite for a healthy learning environment. Since 2015, the Enabling Environment Framework has been helpful in providing guidance to the Philippines in the implementation of the WinS program. On November 14 to 18, 2016 in Jakarta, Indonesia, the Ministry of Education and Culture in Indonesia hosted the 5th WASH in Schools International Learning Exchange, and the 5th WASH in Schools ILE was co-organized by the Indonesian Ministry of Education and Culture, UNICEF Indonesia, and GIZ. It was attended by 160 participants from 16 countries with representatives from the education, health, local government sectors, and other relevant stakeholders in WASH in schools. The Philippines was one of the countries in attendance. And it was in this year that country action plans were presented. And this was also the first time that the enabling environment matrix was used by the countries, including the Philippines, through the Department of Education. Since then, countries like Philippines identified practices, gaps, challenges in the areas of policy and planning. That includes sector policy and planning. And then we also have budget and expenditure that relates to sector budgeting and financing. And then we have monitoring and evaluation, covering planning and sector monitoring, evaluation, and learning. And then we also have implementation arrangements that includes institutional arrangements covering partnerships, coordination, service delivery mechanisms, regulation, and accountability. And of course, a very critical component is the capacity development. And in later years, a sixth area, which is innovation, was also added. Note that in 2022, next slide please, two enabling environment matrices were presented in the 2022 ILE. This was for the Department of Education, which represented 16 regions of the Philippines, and a separate enabling environment matrix for the BARM, Minister of Basic Higher and Technical Education, representing the autonomous region in Muslim Mindanao. And note that the two matrices show how serious the WinS program is taken. And the two separate matrices will show you that we have a clear direction in implementing the WASH in Schools program. Next slide, please. In the Philippines, the WinS Technical Working Group, which is composed of representatives from the Department of Education and partners such as GIZ, UNICEF, Save the Children, meets regularly, and the technical working group aims to provide technical assistance to the Department of Education in implementing programs, projects, and actions related to WASH in schools. And this include, but is not limited to, policy formulation, planning, programming, operation and maintenance, standard setting, monitoring and evaluation, and of course, advocacy. The WinS TWG members help in reviewing and completing the enabling environment matrix document, and they allow for an internal and external review of the program implementation. The team also allows the Department of Education partners to look into the gaps and challenges and assist in those areas. This also provides an overview for planning activities, as it ensures that the targets on the national level are aligned with global benchmarks and targets. Next slide, please. The Department of Education, through the assistance and support of the Technical Working Group, has had many achievements and milestones made, guided by the Enabling Environment Matrix. Initiatives have been done by the Department of Education and its partners to address key questions and targets identified in the areas of attention. Some of these include understanding the need for policies to institutionalize and support WinS, and the Department of Education released DepEd Order number 10 series of 2016 titled Policy and Guidelines for the Comprehensive Water, Sanitation, and Hygiene in Schools, or WinS program, defining the standards for water, sanitation, hygiene, deworming, and health education. The Enabling Environment Matrix in 2015 was critical in justifying this, as it emphasized the country's commitment for WinS. The Enabling Environment Matrix also was helpful to the WinS program by reiterating the need for sufficient budget to support the program. The commitments made by the ministry and the partners also help move forward actions in developing WinS infrastructure and to look for innovations and opportunities for capacity building in different levels. It also helps the ministry to seek support from partners for some deliverables. Examples of this are the WinS monitoring booklets made through the partners in the TWG, Save the Children, UNICEF, and GIZ, and the knowledge map, which was done through the support of GIZ. As I mentioned earlier, the Enabling Environment Matrix is a guide for the Department of Education and partners in planning, providing support, and monitoring developments and deliverables in WinS implementation. Since 2015, the Enabling Environment Matrix has been one of the guides and references that the WinS program uses to make sure that we are meeting global standards for WinS and ensuring that the gaps and challenges are identified, and that we have the interventions for the gaps. And we are proud to be one of the first countries who have been part of this initiative. Once again, I'm Dr. Maria Corazon Dumlao of the Philippines Department of Education, wishing you a pleasant day ahead.
Thank you so much, Doc Dumlao, for your presentation, for showing us a glimpse of how a country was able to use the Enabling Environment Matrix, and how this has supported your Wash in Schools programming. So we have roughly 10 minutes left into for the rest of our program. So in case you have questions to Dr. Dumlao, please place them in the chat. And Dr. Dumlao, may I request you to look into the chat and type in your responses to their questions as we move into the next presentation. I hope that's okay with you, Doc. Right. Yes, thank you. And now, so we have seen one example, and in the next part, next and final part of our presentation, we will look into a compilation of different country examples, uh, which are using the enabling environment matrix as a framework. And this will be presented by our next speaker, Belinda Abraham. So Belinda is an American national and international development specialist with over 20 years of experience in the WASH and education sectors in sub-Saharan Africa and Southeast Asia. She has worked with UNICEF, GIZ, and several international NGOs in 7 countries. She is currently supporting the Global WASH in Schools Network Secretariat and Viva Con Agua on institutional fundraising for their projects in Africa and Asia. Belinda, turn over to you now. Thank you.
Thank you. So it looks like I'm going to raise, I might have to, okay, great. I actually wanted to maybe just go through this very, very briefly, but I'm just a little concerned about how many people actually have access to the translation. So if you can use with the show of hands, veuillez lever les mains. If you have access to the translation, levez les mains quand vous avez le fonction traduction. If you have the, just, I want to see how many, I can't open, can I open this and see how many have? Okay, very, very few. Okay, so only 2. All right, so we will definitely, thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. Unfortunately, my French isn't so strong to do the whole presentation in French. I wish if I had been more prepared, I could have, but I think with the words wouldn't come so well and it wouldn't be so clean. So we will definitely try to get all the presentations and everything to you in French. And perhaps maybe what I can do briefly is just to give you an understanding of how the EE matrix can be used, not only for, maybe you can go on to the next slide, please. Thank you. So we've talked a little bit about it being a tool for assessment and reporting. I mean, assessment, but it can also be used for reporting. And so the basis of this report, if you go to the next slide, and you can all use your phones. Again, unfortunately, it's in English only. I think maybe step number 2 probably is to get this translated. But right now it's in English. We apologize. You can download this report. And this report basically uses the EE matrix to examine what different countries are doing. And what we learned through that is that countries actually doing a lot of good things, a lot of good examples. And these examples, we hope by using the EE matrix, both as as a tool to come together to find out what are the challenges, but also as a reporting tool can strengthen the processes and WINS, but also can strengthen the collaboration and the systems around WINS. And so this report was really just to highlight that and to highlight good examples. So we're going to go through these really very, very quickly. We will send the presentation and we will translate the presentation for you. I will translate the presentation for you to make sure that you can understand it. Next slide, please. We're just going to go very quickly. So policies and planning, we all know the challenges here. We saw very good examples with leadership in Ecuador by Ministry of Education to be able to put together protocols in a very short amount of time. So challenges we do see normally in governments and in WINS, we see challenges around lack of leadership, maybe slow dissemination of guidelines, but we have very good examples of countries which are doing otherwise and coming together under the leadership of Ministry of Education to implement. Next slide, please. In terms of budgets, we know that budgets are often very challenged by insufficient financing or inadequate budgeting for WINS. We have very good examples in the document you will see from Indonesia and Timor-Leste, where they're using existing mechanisms. They were able to revise them to get more money. They were also creating new funding modalities. And what we also saw is through that process, funds were going directly to needy schools. Again, these could be inspirations for other countries. Next slide, please. Monitoring evaluation. Many countries have the challenge of inadequate, non-existent information on WINS that's not systematically collected. But we saw the countries such as the Philippines and others who did have the information were able to use it as a basis of which schools can be reopened. We also saw countries being able to make a greater case for investment in monitoring because they realized their systems were very weak during the time of COVID. So again, Kenya is an example, and you can read more about that. Next slide, please. Implementation arrangements. Again, we see examples from India on how they manage the complexity to coordinate very many ministries together. Again, how can we strengthen the system by going through those aspects of implementation arrangements, leadership within the ministries. Next slide, please. Capacity development, and I would like to really highlight the work that was done. Capacity development and training, massive training is often very costly, very difficult to disseminate. We saw great examples in the Philippines with the massive open online training, which reached thousands of teachers with information. We also see the training institutes in Malawi being the front line for information on WINS. Last slide, please. So again, what this basically shows is we can use the EE matrix to identify problems, but equally we can use the EE matrix to report. And through that reporting, we learn good practices, and then we're able to take those forward. So again, you can, I think, with your mobile phones, you can take down the document to read more, and hopefully it underlines the positive momentum that has been used. And this was done during, and I should have said this earlier, during the pandemic preparedness response. But what we see now is that we can use this to strengthen WINS programs moving forward. So again, I thank you all. I would just like to get the last few minutes to then open it up for any questions, reflections, discussions, and wanted to again thank all those countries for participating. So now it is open if there's any questions. On EE Matrix, International Learning Exchange Africa, or any reflections on the EE Matrix. I'm understanding from this call that many people, this is the first time that they're actually being exposed to it. So any reflections and thoughts about the Enabling Environment Matrix and in preparation for the ILE? Thank you.
Just to say thanks, Belinda. Can you hear me? I think it's very well understood and shown the slides. I think if anybody has further questions, the link is there to download it from the WINS network website. And we will also prepare the French translation of the EE matrix and place it on the website together with the PowerPoint, which shows Belinda's presentation, Dr. Dumlao's presentation, and also some more introduction. So we'll place it on the website. But here are questions, so I hope, Belinda, you can answer them. Thanks.
Okay, sure. So, Yes, there is a question on the interested in learning more on the coordination within different ministries within the example of India. Yeah, I'm just curious if there's anybody actually from India who can explain a little bit more. So their coordination, I think one of the challenges around WINS coordination is having the ministry lead. And I think this is one to have governments lead. And I think in the case of India, through a national program, so establishing the national program, they were able to then not only mobilize funds, but also to have clear roles and responsibilities. And I think this is where oftentimes countries it's challenged. There isn't a national program for WINS. There are oftentimes lots of different projects. There isn't the technical working group mechanism, which is actually it's not only coordination. Technical working groups tend to be coordination mechanisms for information sharing, but not for program implementation, management, and monitoring. And what India did is basically took that technical working group mechanism, used it as a programmatic mechanism under the Clean Schools program, run by the government and then other partners led. And there with that, they were able to look at funding allocations. That means there was a pot where private sector could fund. They were able to use this aligned to the monitoring and evaluation framework so that needy schools were addressed. And most of all, they were able to have clear roles and responsibilities within government and within government partners. But there's more on that to read. Yes.
Right. I believe that's all the questions we have. I hope we have addressed them all. And yeah, much of the comments, questions are around having a copy of the presentation of the EE matrix template. So, yeah, so we'll share that. But there's a hand raised. Perhaps we can have 1 minute just to hear from. Are you able to unmute yourself?
Yeah, it's
Let
Yeah,
me try. All
please.
right, please go ahead.
yeah,
Kumadila, welcome.
yeah.
Thank
Hi,
you.
Belinda. Yeah.
Hi. Yeah.
Yes. No, great presentation. My question is really on the countries that, or maybe your knowledge, Belinda, on the countries that have really looked at integrating climate resilience in WINSA. I mean, for South Africa in the UNICEF, as you know, I've been working with the regional office, but now moved to the country office. We're moving towards creating a fully blown WINSA for WINS for the country office of UNICEF. But I would really like in our work with the Ministry of Education, learning from other countries in terms of how they have monitored. I mean, I think I like the way you put it, that this is a tool that could be used for implementation, but also for monitoring and integrating lessons from other countries or within the country itself or between partners. So I want to learn maybe examples of how climate resilience has been integrated in the whole maybe framework or metrics, if you like. Over.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah. So as I think Bella and also Dr. Dumla mentioned, in 2022, there was another box added under innovation. So there, my research or my review didn't go into the new one. It was doing the previous one. So I didn't see the innovation one. But I do know countries like, for example, Cambodia have now integrated that into their whole framework, actually their WINS bottleneck analysis, their framework for climate change. I know that just recently there was some national workshops and integrating that. So I haven't seen the outcomes for that. The good thing is the International Learning Exchange in Cote d'Ivoire, we do plan to have a panel session on exactly that. And in between now and then, we are collecting country examples. So I will be in a better position in about a month's time to give you a bit more on that and also to share that within the WINS network. Over to you, Bella. I think you might be able to also to add, but there is a lot of work happening on that. I just want to say there is, and particularly in Southeast Asia. Yeah, Bella.
Yeah, we already at the end of our time, but just to thanks a lot. I think this has been very useful explanations and the questions, and perhaps I put that also in the chat. I think the enabling environment matrix has also been developed with a clear vision that SDG 4, that the WASH in Schools targets and indicators are monitored under SDG 4. So as the education sector is usually in the lead because they have to report on progress made in the area of WASH in Schools. And it's also clear that the enabling environment matrix is helping to reach and to make progress on this specific indicators. Yeah, so it's aligned also with the direction to do improvements towards these SDGs related to WASH in Schools. So, but of course it helps a lot to, because it's intersectoral in nature. So this is what is WASH in Schools is between the responsibilities of different government agencies, and therefore it's so important to clarify who's doing what, but the measurement is in the education sector. So it just to place that back here, because sometimes there's unclarity on this. Important to have this clear.
So Bella, for those who are in the ILE coming up, I think to just close this, what are the next steps, would you say, for country delegations in the ILE? Just to close, that we can use that as a closing.
Yes, as I think Nicole pointed that out, that we are in the process to now go through all the people who have an encouragement again. I think 130 people have expressed their interest, but not everyone is open until tomorrow to really sign up and officially register for the ILE. And if we have all these participants who have registered, then we're in the process of approach sort of somebody who's a focal person for this respective country, so that he or she will drive the preparation in country a bit forward. So we'll get the list of the other people who have engaged in or have enrolled to join, and so that there's possibility for the respective teams to align and perhaps meet or on country level. So this is important for them to also align a bit, and then it will, I mean, the entire ILE also offers the possibility that people who have not been perhaps work in the same country but have not really worked together get closer together and align their activities and contribute together to a national WASH in Schools movement and programming within a country. So the next steps will be, you will please, those have not registered, please register finally. Really, you have received an invitation to register, please fill it out. And next step then from there is you will hear from somebody within your country who will then approach the different people who have registered to find a meeting to get together. Is that enough for now? Or Nicole, do you want to add? Are there more informations to give at this point?
No, I think you captured it already. You will receive an information, and there will be some preparation work going on, but we will identify the coordinators. So everyone who registered will receive the information also in what to prepare and will be approached. Thanks.
Well, I guess with that, then it's back to you, Marge, to close.
Yes, thank you, thank you. I think yeah, the final the words from Bella and Belinda, Nicole nicely closes our session for today. So yeah, I'm sure this is just your first time seeing that. For some of you, the first time seeing the tool. So there will be some questions coming up, as Bella pointed out earlier. The WinS network is a platform for you to continue the exchange beyond this webinar. So in case you have questions, we have a contact contact us section in the WinS Network website where you can reach out to us and let us know what sort of questions you have so that in the next webinars we can try to address them as well. So
And the
with
next
that,
webinar is, sorry, the next webinar
the
is?
next webinar is on the 2nd of March, and the
That's right.
topic is around the global impact study of the 3-star approach, which is a WinS monitoring tool. And yeah, we'll also look into where we can integrate some other questions you may have. And we look forward to seeing you, all of you there again. Thank you so much for your participation today. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks,
Thank you
bye.
very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Hello.
Bye.
Hello.
Bye-bye.
Pinicturean.
Hello.
Ayan, sana. Ang ganda sana. O, nandyan si Bella.
Hello.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Can
Thank
you hear
you.
me?
Bye, everyone. Take care.
Congratulations to the WinS Network. Congratulations, Dr. Dumla. And thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lau. Thank
Yeah,
you,
Dr.
Belinda and
Dumlao, that was
Bella,
so
for all your
good.
presentation.
Dr. Dumlao, thank you very much for
Is she still in?
making it real. Is she still in? Yeah, she did a very good job. Her presentation was perfect.
And she actually wanted to respond to one of the questions, but there was a question around climate resilience. So yeah, maybe I can just send the response to via email
I have
to all the
response.
participants when I send the reminders.
Yes.
Oh, did she put it in the box? Or
No.
to oh, I didn't
Yes, but
even see her
have
hand.
the copy of the response. I can provide it also to you.
Okay. Yeah,
But
because
she wanted to respond on the climate thing. Yeah. But congratulations. Congratulations, congratulations, Marge, and of course, Dr. Dumlao. Thank you for sharing.
Oh, somebody's raising their hand. There's a hand still. Oh,
Yes.
yes.
Hello.
Yes, hello. Go ahead.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
I just put in the chat that can you please for the next time provide translation in French for those that are from French-speaking countries.
Yeah. So
we're
really
some people from government
and everything. I'm so sorry
to English, and they somehow, yeah, that's why I request that if it's possible.
Yes, it was possible. You see, I want to explain,
okay.
and we so many came late, but we actually have a translation function. I can see the translation function in mine, but it seems like not everybody has access to it. We figured this out late, that if you join through the browser, you don't have access to the translation function. So next time we will have to do something more simultaneous translation or do something else. So this we found out late. I have translation, so I can see everything translated in French, but it seems like only 2 people had access to that function when I asked.
Okay.
But you don't have access to the French
Thank
translation. Vous avez la traduction? Fonction traduction?
So myself, I don't somehow need it. I can copy.
You can manage it.
But
but for the government.
Yeah, I can manage with the English. But
Yeah,
what I mean, there's other participating from government, from French-speaking countries, and they may need some assistance in French. That's why.
Absolutely, no. Absolutely no. It was intended to have that, but it's for whatever reason it's not working. So this is what was a problem. But we will definitely, obviously, next time address that.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Merci beaucoup. Bonne journée.
Okay. Merci.
So as the organizer of this session, I think I have the power to like close this room. So I'll do that now. Unless there are some final questions from.
I think you can, or what you can do is we can stay on. And do you know how to through your participant list, you can just you can exit the other participants, and then we can just stay on as the organizing team. Do you know how to do that? So you go into participants, and then you basically, it allows you to exit. No? If not, we can go back to the other link if it's easier. But I think normally you can close it and we can come back. No?
It's not working for me. And yes, yeah, I can do it. But yeah, just a manual process of removing them one by one.
Yeah.
But yes, it works.
March, can you stop? I think we're still recording. Can we stop the recording now, perhaps?
Oh yes, thanks for flagging.